Hello everyone and welcome to the vlog. Today we are diving deep into one of William Faulkner's most powerful and unsettling stories, Dry September. This short story is a haunting mirror of the deep-seated racism that once defined and in many ways still shapes American society. Faulkner captures the toxic mix of racial prejudice, mob mentality, and latent white supremacy, exposing how blind hatred can turn ordinary people into instruments of violence. So let's unpack how Dry September reveals the tragic cost of systemic injustice, both in the past and in our world today. Dry September is set in the American South during the Jim Crow era, a dark chapter in US history when racial segregation was legalized and enforced through a network of discriminatory laws. These laws institutionalized disenfranchisement, denying African Americans the right to vote, access education equally, or even share public spaces with white citizens. This period also witnessed the Great Migration, when millions of Black Americans fled the South in search of safety and opportunity in northern cities, escaping the daily violence of racial bias and discrimination. Yet, even in the North, they faced housing and job inequality, a testament to how systemic racism extended beyond geography. In 1909, the NAACP was formed to combat this injustice through legal and political means. Decades later, landmark victories like Brown versus Board of Education, which outlawed racial segregation in public schools, and the Montgomery bus boycott, led by Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., signaled the rise of the civil rights movement. These efforts culminated in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin. At the heart of Dry September lies the accusation of Minnie Cooper, a white woman, against Will Mays, a black man. She never clearly states what happened, but her mere suggestion of assault sets off a storm of racial hysteria. In a society built on latent white supremacy, her word automatically outweighs his humanity. The accusation becomes an excuse, a weapon used to justify violence under the guise of protecting white womanhood. This systemic injustice in action, where discrimination is not just individual bias but a social structure that privileges one race over another. Will May's story echoes real-world cases where countless innocent black men were lynched or imprisoned without evidence, their lives destroyed by the machinery of racial power and fear. What follows is a chilling portrayal of mob mentality, the way collective hatred erases conscience. A group of white men, consumed by racial bias and a thirst for vengeance, forms a lynch mob. They don't seek truth or justice, they seek validation of their supremacy. The heat of the September night mirrors the boiling rage within them, a psychological transformation where segregationist ideology turns men into monsters. John McLendon, the leader of the mob, embodies the purest form of latent white supremacy. His authority thrives on fear and domination. Faulkner shows how violence becomes a ritual, a way of enforcing racial hierarchy. The mob's actions mirror historical acts of police brutality and extrajudicial killings, moments when the law, rather than protecting, becomes complicit in oppression. Each man's silence in that mob represents another layer of disenfranchisement, not just of Will May's rights, but of their own humanity. The murder of Will Mays is the story's breaking point, a brutal reminder of the dehumanizing power of racial prejudice. Faulkner doesn't describe any act of violence, but the silence, the shadows, and the fear speak louder than any image could. Will Mays stands for every black man who became a victim of systemic injustice, from the Reconstruction era to the countless lynchings that scarred the early 20th century. This isn't just one man's tragedy, it is the manifestation of discrimination embedded deep within the social fabric. The mob believes it is defending order, but in truth, it's enforcing racial terror. Faulkner compels us to confront the terrifying consequences of a society where empathy dies and white supremacy dictates morality. While Dry September takes place nearly a century ago, its echoes ring painfully true today. Systemic racism continues to shape modern institutions, from racial profiling and police brutality to economic inequality and educational segregation. The legacy of Jim Crow lingers in subtle forms: microaggressions, implicit racial bias, and the continued disenfranchisement of marginalized communities. Movements like Black Lives Matter remind us that we are still confronting the same moral disease Faulkner exposed. A cycle where fear fuels division and silence enables oppression. We may have laws like the Civil Rights Act, but the struggle for equality lives on the fight against institutionalized discrimination and the invisible chains of prejudice that still bind many lives today. So, how do we break this cycle of systemic injustice? The first step is awareness. It is education. Understanding history, not as something distant, but as something that shapes our present. We must confront our own biases and challenge the everyday systems that perpetuate inequality. Listening to voices long silenced, supporting reforms that ensure accountability, and standing against racial prejudice. These are the foundations of change. Dry September forces us to look into the darkness of human behavior, but also to recognize the possibility of light through awareness and empathy. It is a reminder that silence sustains oppression, but courage disrupts it. Let the story be not just a lesson from the past, but a call to action in present to ensure dignity, respect, and equality for all. Thank you for watching this vlog. I hope this vlog was insightful enough, and let's keep the conversation alive, because every step toward understanding is a step toward justice. Thank you so much.